"You're not coming to the retreat. It's for executives and their partners," she said, slicing into her avocado toast like it was a decision that hadn't already been made weeks ago. I stared at her across the table, one hand wrapped around my coffee mug, the other clenched beneath it. She didn't look up. She never did anymore, unless I was holding a check or a charger she couldn't find. "I'm your husband," I said, not because I needed clarity, but because I wanted to see if she'd even flinch. She didn't, just shrugged. "Let's not make this weird. You wouldn't enjoy it anyway. It's not your scene." Right, marble hotel bars, overpriced wine, performative power laughs. Definitely not my scene. I asked who was going in my place. She blinked, just once, and said, "Well, Henry's going. The CEO should be accompanied, right?" Optics. Optics. That word hung there, thick as smoke. She kissed my cheek before leaving. "Don't wait up," she said, as if she were headed to Pilates, not a mountain resort with a man who's been forwarding her late-night strategy decks since Q3. She packed light, tight black dress, white silk blouse I hadn't seen since our anniversary in Palm Springs. Lingerie I'd only noticed when she slipped it into her carry-on like a heist. At the airport, she didn't look back, not once. No text, no emoji, just silence and exit signs. I watched the Uber drive away from the upstairs window, then took a long sip of cold coffee and opened the folder on my desk. Inside, documents, schedules, notarized forms, things she never thought to ask about. See, she took the weekend as a vacation. I took it as clearance. And if you're still listening, more than 90% of the people like you never hit subscribe, and yet you keep coming back. Just saying, it keeps us building stories like this. Hit the button. It helps more than you think. The first time I knew something was off wasn't the lipstick. It wasn't even the sudden obsession with late-stage funding conversations that never included my name. It was the silence. When we married, she talked a lot about everything. Every achievement, every coworker's faux pas, every bad lunch meeting. I used to joke that she could turn a water cooler chat into a 3-act play. But over the past 6 months, that voice turned into curated updates, polished summaries, quarterly reports of a marriage she'd already begun outsourcing. Her shift started right around the time Henry, charming, brash, allergic to accountability, started tagging her in Instagram photos from impromptu brainstorms at cocktail bars. That was the same month she changed her phone password, said it was for work security, said I was being paranoid. Classic gaslight, like her suddenly having wine shipped from Napa for client dinners was normal when she used to drink boxed red and brag about saving on delivery fees. Then came the email alert, harmless, routine, vendor confirmation for the retreat. It wasn't sent to me, but to a shared account she forgot I still had access to. The header read, "Welcome Mr. and Mrs. Halbrook." My name, not hers, not Henry's, mine. That's when I knew, not just that something was happening, but that it had already happened, long ago, and she assumed I'd be too checked out to notice. She wasn't wrong, until now. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers, or slap phones out of her hand, like the idiot husbands in bad divorce dramas. No. I went quiet, because quiet lets people get loud with their mistakes. While she was booking spa treatments and pretending to laugh at Henry's finance jokes, I was finalizing something far less relaxing. There's a funny thing about shareholder structures, especially in companies where founders get lazy and let their spouses manage optics while ignoring operations. The kind of companies that rely on private investors who'd rather deal with a steady hand than an Instagram power couple. I was always the steady hand, and I had been working with their legal since March. She never asked what I did during the day, just that the trash got taken out. It did, along with her leverage. And now, as she rides a town car through winding mountain roads, thinking she's arriving to a retreat hosted by her boss and lover, she has no idea the welcome banner has already been hung. It doesn't have Henry's name on it. It has mine. Not because I made a move, because she gave me the board, one signature at a time, one trust document after another, one share that didn't matter until it did. So yes, I wasn't invited to the retreat. But that's fine, because when she checks into the suite with the rose petals on the bed, the hotel staff won't be congratulating Henry. They'll be thanking her for marrying the new majority shareholder. Me. She stepped out of the car with the confidence of a woman who believed the universe bent for her convenience. The wind caught her scarf just enough to dramatize the moment, the kind of thing she'd post to her stories with a caption like, "Mountain air plus boardroom flair." The driver opened the door for her, smiling politely. "Courtesy of Mr. Halbrook," he said. She smiled, barely listening, already assuming it was Henry pulling strings. That's how it worked between them. She made herself useful, and he repaid the favor with sleek gestures, first-class upgrades, backdoor invites, little nods of favoritism dressed up as meritocracy. She didn't even ask which Halbrook. She didn't think there could be another. The resort itself looked like a Bond villain's cabin adult film, stone, glass, and timber, with views so stunning they'd make your moral compass spin. The kind of place where billionaires sip single malt while plotting IPOs and layoffs in the same breath. As the elevator doors opened to the penthouse floor, she let her heels click purposefully, every step a press release. She expected Henry to be waiting in the suite. Maybe already with a drink poured, maybe shirt unbuttoned just enough to suggest stress but not desperation. But the room was quiet. No Henry, just luxury and confusion. Rose petals across the bed. A bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape breathing on the bar. The good kind. The kind she once said was too earthy when I ordered it for our 3rd anniversary. On the coffee table sat a lacquered wooden box. Elegant, weighty, and on the lid, engraved in gold, "To the wife of our new majority shareholder." She laughed at first, out loud, then stopped. Inside the box, a single cream-colored card, heavy cardstock, handwritten in a clean, tight script she knew instantly. My name. No greeting, no signature, just one line. "Enjoy the view." She turned around to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The mountain range outside was breathtaking, snow just starting to dust the pines. She wasn't breathing. The TV across the suite powered on automatically, syncing with her keycard's entry. The resort's welcome screen flickered to life. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Halbrook. Penthouse level." Her smile dropped so fast it should have cracked the glass. She blinked at the screen like it had glitched, waiting for the name to correct itself. It didn't. She grabbed the phone, dialing 0. The concierge answered with polished cheer. "Yes, Mrs. Halbrook." She didn't correct him. "Who booked this suite?" she asked, careful not to let her voice crack. "Mr. Halbrook finalized it directly," the voice replied. "All arrangements were approved under his account, and the reservation includes your name as his spouse and partner." She hung up without a word. The air felt thinner now, like the mountain had shifted its altitude just for her. She moved quickly to the closet. Her suitcase was there. Unpacked. Her dress for the gala was hanging pressed and ready. But so was something else, a framed photo, her and me, from the launch party 3 years ago, her hand on my chest, her eyes fixed forward. Mine fixed on her. She'd had that photo removed from her office last year. It didn't fit the narrative. Her phone buzzed, a text from Henry. "Here, let's pop the cork on this retreat." 2 seconds later, a knock at the door. She opened it halfway. Henry, grinning, champagne in hand. Behind him, a bellhop with a cart full of her things. He looked past her into the room, his brow furrowed. "Wait, this is your room?" he asked. The bellhop cleared his throat, polite but pointed. "Apologies, ma'am. Shall I move your belongings to the Halbrook suite now?" Henry blinked. "The what?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. The silence stretched. Her face, flushed before, now lost all color. "Your husband?" Henry asked, stepping back slightly. "What the hell is going on?" She tried to speak. Nothing came out. Just the sound of reality collapsing. Quietly. Completely. The bellhop waited, patient. Almost too patient. Like he'd been instructed to give her a moment. Like this wasn't the first time the suite had done this to someone. Henry walked away, muttering something under his breath. He didn't even wait for the champagne to chill. The bellhop tilted his head. "So, would you like the welcome gift moved as well?" She closed the door, locked it, turned around slowly, like the room might have changed while her back was turned. But it hadn't. The petals still spelled out her title. The wine still waited, and the name on the screen still welcomed her. Mrs. Halbrook. She sat down on the edge of the bed, hands resting on her knees like a schoolgirl called into the principal's office. She didn't know what it meant yet, but I did. "There's a mistake," she said sharply into the receiver, her tone brittle and stretched too thin. From the edge of the bed, she'd already redialed the front desk 3 times. each call increasingly shrill. She stood now, pacing the plush carpet of the suite like a tiger in a shrinking cage. "I understand, ma'am," came the calm reply from the concierge, "but the reservation was made under Mr. Halbrook's authority. He finalized the suite, the amenities, and the guest list. As of this week, per the submitted documents, Mr. Halbrook is listed as the majority shareholder, 62% to be exact." Silence. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "That can't be right. There must be a mistake in your... We were told to treat you with full executive courtesy," the voice continued, unbothered, "as the wife of our new majority shareholder." She ended the call without saying goodbye. Her hands were shaking now. 62%. That number hit like a slap. She did the math before she even meant to. All the founder's shares he'd quietly retained, the silent partners he'd introduced her to, casually as friends, the trust she skimmed but never fully read, her own shares, gifted years ago, then pooled and used as leverage in a deal she signed off on to streamline operations. Streamline. Another damn buzzword she used to dismiss my concern. She barely had time to collect herself before a knock shattered the quiet. 3 quick raps on the door, confident and familiar. Henry. She opened it, and there he was, tan, grinning, holding a bottle of vintage Dom like a prize. "You ready to charm the board?" he said, stepping forward. He didn't make it past the doorway. His smile faltered as his eyes scanned the suite, the petals, the wine, the card on the table, then the TV, still glowing faintly with the welcome message. "Mr. and Mrs. Halbrook, penthouse level." He turned back to her. "Wait, your husband?" He laughed once, nervously. "What the hell is going on, Ava?" Behind him, the bellhop wheeled another cart to the door. "Apologies, ma'am," he said again, like he'd been waiting for this precise line. "Shall I move your belongings to the Halbrook suite?" Henry's head snapped toward the bellhop. "The what suite?" The bellhop smiled, professional and rehearsed. "Mr. Halbrook requested all of Mrs. Halbrook's items be brought here. He said she'd feel more comfortable surrounded by familiarity." Henry blinked. "He booked this suite?" "Reserved it, in full, as of 3 weeks ago." Ava's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Henry stepped further in, slowly now, measured, his tone dropped. "Is this a joke? Are you telling me your husband is the one who owns the company now?" She finally found her voice. He doesn't own it. He's just..." The bellhop coughed very softly. "Actually, ma'am, per our paperwork, he's now listed as the majority stakeholder and effective board chair as of Monday. That's tomorrow, by the way." Henry took a step back, the bottle of Dom hanging like dead weight in his hand. "What the hell did you do, Ava?" His voice wasn't angry. It was scared. She'd never heard that tone from him before, not even when the SEC flagged their Q4 numbers. "I didn't know," she whispered. "He didn't tell me." Henry exhaled, slow and low, like the last air in a deflating balloon. "No, but I think he told everyone else." She flinched, because that was starting to feel true. Henry dropped the champagne onto the side table. Not gently. It rolled a little, clinking against the wood before stopping. "I should go," he muttered. She reached for him. "Wait, just wait. We can fix this." He looked at her hand like it was a trap. "You don't fix this. This wasn't an accident. This was architectural." He turned and walked away. The bellhop, still holding her extra bags, gave a slight nod. "Would you like me to unpack these again, Mrs. Halbrook?" She closed the door in his face. The silence in the suite was deafening now. She looked around, really looked. The roses, the wine, the framed photo she hadn't noticed earlier, their wedding day, his arm around her waist, her in that pale gold dress she swore she'd never wear again, him smiling, tight-lipped, reserved, like he already knew something she didn't. She sat back down on the edge of the bed. This room wasn't for her. It was about her. Every detail, every flower petal, every damn line of script in that card was a mirror reflecting something she hadn't seen coming. And outside, past the glass walls and perfect mountain views, the sun was starting to set. The retreat hadn't even started, and already she'd been outplayed. She walked into headquarters at 7:08 a.m., earlier than she had in years. Not because of dedication, because of fear. Her heels hit the marble floor too hard, too fast, echoing through the otherwise empty lobby. The security guard, Marvin, looked up from his tablet, gave a nod, then quickly looked back down like his paycheck depended on it. He used to say good morning, used to offer coffee. Now, just silence and the hum of detachment. The receptionist, Tina, always bubbly, always overdressed, kept her eyes glued to her monitor. No chirpy "hey boss," no compliments on the handbag Ava specifically wore to project power. Something had shifted. She felt it before the elevator even opened. She tapped her key card against the reader. Nothing. She tried again. Red light. She stared at the panel, blinking, then back at Tina. "System issue?" Ava asked, with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Tina hesitated, eyes still low. I think you should speak with someone from HR." It took Ava a moment to realize that wasn't a deferral. That was a full stop. The elevator pinged anyway. Someone inside had already called it. She stepped in before Tina could add anything else and jabbed the button for the 15th floor. Access denied. She tried again. Same red light. She watched the numbers rise floor by floor and stopped herself from pulling out her phone. She didn't want to seem rattled on the security feed. She knew they recorded these rides. When the elevator reached the 12th floor, legal, she got off. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and secrets. She turned toward the main conference wing, only to freeze at the sight through the glass partition. The boardroom was full. Everyone was there. Finance, legal, operations, even Rajiv from International, who hadn't flown in for internal meetings in over a year. She spotted the general counsel leaning over the head of the table, speaking softly to someone seated there. The seat was turned just enough that she couldn't see the face. But the posture? Relaxed. Familiar. She stepped forward instinctively, only for the automatic glass door to remain shut. Motion sensor locked. And this time her badge didn't even blink. Ava's fingers hovered over the doorframe, a twitch of hesitation. She didn't knock. No one inside acknowledged her. Then the door behind her opened, and footsteps echoed toward her. She turned to see a man in a steel gray suit, early 40s, slim leather folio tucked under one arm. "Ms. Halbrook," he said, voice even. "My name is Conrad Wells. I'm part of external counsel working with your husband's office." She blinked. "External? What the hell are you talking about?" He nodded toward the smaller side conference room. "May I speak with you privately?" She hesitated, then followed. Inside the smaller room, he opened the folio, laid out 2 documents. "There's been a restructuring," he began, sliding them toward her. She didn't sit, just stared. "You're still employed. For now," he continued, his tone precise, surgical, "but Mr. Halbrook has assumed control of the executive leadership review process. All standing contracts are under evaluation, including yours." "I'm on the board," she snapped, though it sounded weaker than she'd intended. "You were," he corrected without blinking. "Your board status was provisional, pending shareholder vote." She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "He can't do this. I built this company's public image. I own 14%, he said calmly, now held in trust. "And per the agreement you signed 2 years ago, Clause 9B, if any marital conflict arises involving another executive officer, the voting rights attached to those shares revert." She stared at him. "Revert to whom?" she asked, though she already knew. "Mr. Halbrook," he said. She sank slowly into the chair, the legs of it squeaking like a death rattle. She tried to speak, to argue, to claw her way back to confidence, but it slipped between her fingers like fog. "Your current compensation package remains active," he added, as if tossing crumbs to a starving woman. "Pending review." "And if I resign?" she asked, almost daring. He raised an eyebrow. "Then you waive all severance, bonuses, and non-compete protections." She was boxed in, trapped by her own dotted lines. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair backward. He didn't flinch. She left the room in silence, heels echoing down the corridor like gunshots in a museum. She passed the glass wall of the boardroom again. Someone inside turned, just for a second, not Henry. Me, I didn't wave, didn't smirk, just watched, like I was observing a forecast unfold exactly as predicted. Outside the elevator, she pulled out her phone, dialed, straight to voicemail. She called again and again, voicemail, then, "This number is unavailable. Please leave a message." She didn't, not yet, because the part she couldn't accept wasn't that I wouldn't answer. It was that I didn't need to. She stood in front of the full-length mirror longer than usual, adjusting the neckline of the charcoal dress she hadn't worn since the investor gala last fall. Back then, it fit like armor. Tonight, it felt more like camouflage. Her hair was pinned precisely, the kind of style that says, "I didn't come to cry, I came to conquer." Her earrings, diamond studs from our 5th anniversary, were selected deliberately. She always said they gave her the right kind of sparkle, the kind that made people lean in when she talked. She needed that sparkle tonight. Outside, the town car idled. It was a black sedan, sleek and silent, sent by the company as a formality. Not by me, and not by Henry either. The invitation had come through a general email addressed to Ms. Halbrook with no title attached. But she knew what it was, a test. And she wouldn't fail. The venue was an upscale gallery space turned event hall, all clean white walls, dramatic lighting, and minimal decor, just the company's new logo projected subtly above the wine bar, and framed quotes about leadership lining the walls like commandments. She stepped inside with the posture of a woman still in control, still relevant, still essential. The host at the check-in desk offered a tight smile and scrolled through the tablet. "Name?" "Ava Halbrook," she said crisply. The host paused. Yes, but you're not listed under an executive guest." "I'm his wife," she said, voice lowering, edged now. The host nodded, eyes flicking between her and the screen. "Then you're welcome as family. Right this way." She didn't like the sound of that. Family was polite code for non-strategic. Still, she followed. The room was divided into tiers of importance without any visible markers. But Ava knew the layout. The central tables were filled with board members, VPs, and department heads. A few familiar faces glanced her way as she passed, but not one made space. Her table was near the catering doors, next to a retired advisor's wife and the spouse of someone in logistics. Disposable seating. She scanned the room for me. It didn't take long. I was at the center table, seated between Gabriella Mensch, head of EMEA strategy, and Julian Price from R&D. 2 of the 5 people who used to avoid her because she talked too much in meetings and always left decisions to circle back. My suit was charcoal, tie, silver, not loud, not flashy, but every angle said something had shifted. She watched as a server poured me wine. I didn't look up. Someone leaned in to whisper in my ear, probably a comment about the champagne, or maybe about the photographer 2 tables over, snapping candids of the leadership for the internal newsletter. Then came the toasts. A low chime echoed across the room as the lights dimmed and a single spotlight snapped to life. The CEO, now just a figurehead, stood first, raising a glass. "Tonight we honor new leadership," he said, a faint smile stitched to his face like a reluctant bandage. "We recognize vision, strategy, and, perhaps most importantly, quiet strength." She froze. Quiet strength. That used to be what people said about her. Then the projector kicked in. A photo appeared on the screen, a candid shot of me shaking hands with the CFO and Julian Price, below it bold serif text, "Chairman Halbrook." The room erupted in applause. She sat perfectly still, clapping too late, too slow. The retired advisor's wife leaned over and whispered, "That's your husband, isn't it?" Ava nodded without turning her head. The woman smiled. "He carries himself differently now. It suits him. It suits him." She wanted to throw her wine at the wall. Instead, she took a sip and watched as I stood, offered a few measured words, none of which included her name, and sat down again. When dessert arrived, a server delivered a chocolate torte to every seat. At the central table, a gold leaf garnish adorned each plate. Hers was plain. No fanfare, no sugar dust, no gold. Just a plate of something sweet, served cold. She sat in that chair for another 35 minutes. No one came over, no one invited her closer. She could see the power, smell it, but the seat she wanted, taken, and the man who once held her hand through investor dinners was now flanked by people who never once asked if she was joining. She left before the coffee. No one stopped her. The door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the glass in the hallway frames. She didn't bother taking off her heels. Every step echoed across the floor like punctuation, rage in staccato. Her coat hit the banister, purse flung to the floor. She moved on instinct, not thought, heading for the filing cabinet in the corner of the study she rarely entered anymore. It still smelled faintly of paper and cologne. Mine. She yanked the drawer open, rifling past tax folders, refinancing statements, random documents she once claimed she'd digitize and never did. Her fingers moved too fast. She was skimming, scanning, cursing. Then, there, a thick envelope slightly bent at the corners, labeled in my handwriting, Trust Agreement, Hallbrook Residence Refinance 20. She hesitated for just a second, not from fear, from memory. This was the document I'd given her on a Thursday night 2 years ago, the night the boiler failed. I'd made tea, handed her the file, and said, "It's just paperwork to finalize the house equity transfer, refee stuff, all the legalese is standard." She hadn't looked at it. Not really. Just flipped to the last page, asked, "This protects both of us, right?" And signed. I nodded, kissed her cheek. She never asked again. Now she pulled the pages apart, scanning with eyes that had learned to look after the damage. The trust was straightforward at first glance. Refinance terms, title reassignments, equity provisions for spousal interest. Legal mumbo-jumbo designed to lull someone into compliance. But halfway through, tucked between paragraphs like a buried mine, she found it. Section 14. In the event of executive misconduct, including but not limited to unethical behavior with fiduciary staff or marital breach of fidelity, all spouse-held shares, including voting rights and equity benefits, shall revert to the original founder upon documentation of breach. She stared at the sentence. Read it again, and again, and again. Her breath caught, not in that dramatic movie way, but like her lungs forgot how to work for a full 3 seconds. The clause was specific, ironclad, crafted by someone who'd spent months waiting for the perfect moment to use it. At the bottom of the page, her signature sat in blue ink, perfectly legible, dated, notarized. She flipped back to the front page as if the cover would somehow invalidate the content. It didn't. There was the header, Supplemental Equity Trust, Hallbrook Family Holdings. My name as trustee, hers as beneficiary, conditional. She ran her hand through her hair and sat down hard on the edge of the desk. She remembered arguing with me that night, not about the document, but about the temperature in the guest room. The space heater was broken. She made jokes about freezing to death before finalizing our taxes. She had no idea she was signing away the last weapon she'd ever hold. All her shares, all her leverage, gone. And legally transferred to the man she was, even then, quietly pushing out of their marriage. She opened her laptop and pulled up the shared drive we hadn't used in months. Searched for trust, cross-referenced the dates. Nothing. Of course, I hadn't uploaded it. I wouldn't. I had printed it, brought it to her, and watched her sign it with her own hand. It wasn't revenge. It was insurance. And she'd handed it over like it was a diner receipt. She stood up, shaking now, but not from anger, from the sick weight of realization, the kind of feeling that starts in your stomach and works its way into your spine, crawling upward like an infection. She had mocked me for being passive, for being too comfortable, for never pushing back on her career domination. She thought she was the one with foresight. But I wasn't passive, I was patient. 2 years ago, I handed her the pen, and now she was watching her entire power structure collapse, not from force, but from preparation. She slammed the drawer shut. This wasn't just betrayal, it was checkmate. And she'd been playing tic-tac-toe with crayons. She started with the safe names first. Erica from Strategy, brunch friend, conference confidant, shared so many dirty company secrets over cheap rosé they could have both been indicted if someone cared enough to leak the text. No answer. Then Jason, the VP of marketing, her designated work husband before Henry stepped into the picture. They used to joke that he'd officiate her vow renewal if she ever decided to make a second go at pretending to care about anniversaries. No answer, not even a read receipt. Her hands hovered over the phone screen, half-dialed numbers filling her call log like ghosts. She tried one more. Mari, the assistant who used to adore her, who once sobbed in her office after a bad breakup and thanked Ava for teaching her how not to settle. Sent. Delivered. Read. Nothing. A chill crept up her spine, unfamiliar and unwelcome. She tossed her phone onto the passenger seat, cursed, then picked it up again as it buzzed. Not a message. An alert. Subject, HR, Notice of Administrative Leave, Conflict of Interest, Disclosure, Inquiry. She tapped it open, hands shaking. The language was clean, clinical, but not cold. It didn't need to be. A Effective immediately, you are placed on leave pending formal review of your involvement in undisclosed personal relationships with senior executives, including, but not limited to, Mr. Henry Carr. This leave is non-disciplinary. However, access to company platforms, secure systems, and internal communication channels will be restricted during the review period. It was signed by Angela Chung, SVP of People Ops. Angela, the woman who cried at Ava's wedding, who once told her over drinks, "If you ever run for CEO, I'll be your campaign manager." She stared at the screen until the auto lock dimmed it. And when she finally looked up, she realized she had parked across the street from the building. 15 stories of glass and clean lines. Their dream once, her stage later. Now, someone else's weapon. She didn't bother using the front doors. She stormed through them. The receptionist stood but didn't greet her. The security guard, different from Marvin this time, moved his hand to his radio as she passed. Her badge didn't work, but someone buzzed her in, probably for the entertainment. She made it to the executive floor before the silence really settled. No one looked at her. People passed by, clutching folders, whispering, smiling awkwardly like you would around someone who just found out their name was written in dry erase marker on the org chart. Then she saw him. Henry, standing outside the conference room. He saw her too. Didn't wave, didn't smile, turned back to his conversation with legal and shut the door behind him. She stared at the door like it owed her an explanation. And then, behind her, the whisper. She turned too late to catch who said it, but it wasn't subtle. She had to know it would come out eventually. Laughter followed, quick, harsh, forgettable. She left the same way she came, through the lobby. Only this time, there were cameras. 2 photographers. Probably business blogs. Or worse, internal comms team documenting the transparency journey. They didn't chase her. Just clicked. The doors hissed shut behind her. And then the final insult. A push notification lit up her phone. Company PR blast. Chairman Halbrook announces executive restructuring for ethical governance. Below it, a pull quote. From me, it's not just about leadership. It's about accountability, especially when no one thinks you're watching. She stood there, mid-sidewalk, traffic blowing exhaust into her coat, heels on wet pavement, phone in hand, blinking. There was no rebuttal, no one to call, no team to rally. She was supposed to be untouchable. Instead, she was alone. And finally, irrelevant. The apartment was too quiet now. Not peaceful, hollow. The kind of silence that made the hum of the refrigerator sound like a warning. Ava sat on the couch, still in the same tailored blazer she'd worn to the office 3 days ago. She hadn't changed, hadn't showered. Her inbox was flooded with confirmed receipt emails from HR, legal, and a dozen department heads who were suddenly unable to comment at this time. She hadn't opened any of them. Instead, she stared at her phone, thumb hovering over her call history like she could undo it. Make someone, anyone, respond. She called Henry twice. No answer. Then a text. Don't drag me down with you. I've got too much at stake. It was the most honest thing he'd ever sent her. She let the phone fall into the cushions beside her and curled into the cold edge of the couch, unsure if she was more furious or afraid. That's when it rang. She didn't recognize the number, out of state, but she answered it anyway, throat dry, voice flat. Hello? A pause, then a voice, young, male, unsure. Ms. Halbrook? She frowned. Speaking. Another pause. I hope it's okay I called. This is Noah. I'm an analyst in procurement. We met once in the elevator, I think. Last year? She almost hung up right there. He said, then stopped, a nervous inhale. I just wanted to say, he was always kind. Your husband, Mr. Halbrook. She closed her eyes. I know people didn't notice him, or didn't try to, but those of us lower down, we did. And when you used to talk about him in meetings, like he was some pet project or punchline, it felt wrong. Her stomach twisted. Why are you telling me this? She said, sharper than she intended. Noah hesitated then. Because we all saw it, the way you treated him. And honestly, we wondered how long it would take before he took back what was his. Click. The line went dead. She didn't move, not even when her phone slipped from her fingers and thudded against the carpet. She sat there, staring blankly at the far wall. The one where their wedding photo used to hang before she redecorated last year. Too dated, she'd said. She used to think she'd outgrown him, that she'd risen while he coasted, but it turns out you can't rise past someone who's already steps ahead and just choosing not to show it. A knock at the door broke the silence. A single package waited outside, nondescript brown paper, no return label. She brought it in carefully, almost ritualistically, as if touching it too fast would make it explode. Inside a single manila envelope. She pulled it out slowly, flipped it open. It was the original stock transfer agreement, her handwriting in the margins, her signature, her initials, dated, stamped. Everything was legitimate, everything binding. Taped to the front was a yellow sticky note. 7 words in the familiar sharp lettering of the man she'd once promised to build an empire with. Always read the fine print. M. She dropped the envelope like it burned. It landed sideways, content spilling out like a crime scene no one else would care to investigate. She slid down the wall until she hit the floor, knees pulled to her chest. There was no press release this time. No firing. No confrontation. Just the quiet thud of truth landing. He hadn't outmaneuvered her in a boardroom. He'd outmaneuvered her years ago. With trust. With silence. With that calm, patient smile that she mistook for complacency, never realizing it was calculation. Even Noah from procurement had seen it. She didn't lose everything in one meeting or one scandal. She lost it the moment she stopped looking at him like a partner and started seeing him as invisible. And he'd simply waited for the perfect moment to remind her he was never gone, just watching. It started like deja vu. Same resort, same mountain, framing the backdrop like a monument to permanence. She recognized the lobby, the stone archways, the way the pine trees blurred in the wind behind the grand windows. Only this time she wasn't there. She was on her second cup of instant coffee in a studio apartment that rattled every time the neighbor slammed their door. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a bun that screamed, "I'm trying." The blinds were closed, but the television lit the room with the soft blue glow of success, his success. A year had passed since she walked out of that building with her head high and her title revoked. No legal action, no reconciliation, just the slow vacuum of being forgotten. She hadn't seen his face since the last company dinner, back when she still believed she could claw her way back, before HR iced her out, before her attorney quietly advised her to pivot to new opportunities, before Henry scrubbed her from his LinkedIn like she was a typo in his resume. Now she watched as the live feed cut to the resort's rooftop ballroom, transformed into a spectacle of glass and light. Banners hung from the second-story balconies. Hallbrook Group, Global Expansion Summit. The camera panned slowly across the crowd. Executives, media reps, international partners. Some faces she knew, others that hadn't been in the picture when she ruled that office like a queen. Then, him. Standing at the podium in a tailored navy suit, posture relaxed, smile measured. The crowd quieted as the mic came to life. She leaned closer, almost unconsciously. He didn't begin with thanks, didn't list contributors, or launch into a speech riddled with buzzwords. He just said, "Power isn't taken." A beat. The room listened. "It's given away," he continued, voice calm, assured. "Sometimes in boardrooms, sometimes in living rooms, and sometimes in careless signatures." Laughter, genuine, unforced. He smiled. "We've built something here that reflects not just leadership but ownership. Quiet, focused, relentless ownership." Applause. The camera shifted again to the woman beside him, tall, poised, unfamiliar, hair in a sleek twist, dark green dress, simple earrings. No wedding ring, but her hand rested lightly on his back as he stepped down. The crowd parted for them like scripture. Ava stared at the screen. The coffee in her mug had gone cold. The woman leaned in, said something close to his ear. He nodded, smiled again. The screen cut to a wide shot of the banner overhead. Hallbrook Group, Global Expansion. She squinted at the fine print beneath it. Founded 2016, restructured 24, future-proofed. Her vision blurred slightly. She reached for the remote but couldn't press mute. This wasn't just a conference, it was a coronation. He wasn't just the chairman now, he was the architect, the kingmaker, the face of the empire they were supposed to build together. Except now, she realized, It had never truly been together. He let her wear the title. While he built the infrastructure, she had laughed at his quiet, mocked his patience, and he had repaid it by waiting until she laughed a little too loud, signed a little too fast, trusted a little too easily. Now, she sat in a rented apartment watching a man she once dismissed become the kind of name people put in headlines. And not once, not even as a footnote, was she mentioned. No scandals, no salacious memoirs, just erasure. A slow, dignified wipe of her existence from the things she thought she controlled. The screen faded to the company logo. Her own reflection flickered in the glass. Not powerful, not envied, just watching. The lobby was quiet. Too quiet for a Friday night. No piano music, no clinking glasses, just the low hum of hidden ductwork and the faint click of her heels as she crossed the marble. It was past midnight, off-season, the kind of time where even luxury forgets to be indulgent. She hadn't planned to come. She told herself she was just driving, just needed air, just wanted to remember what it felt like to be in it, that world, that orbit, that stage. But she walked through the revolving door anyway. The same resort, same stone pillars. Same flicker of scented candles by the concierge desk. She stepped to the counter, eyes glassy but fixed. The night clerk, young, polite, unaware, looked up with a practiced smile. "I'd like the penthouse suite," she said. No smile, no warmth, just the sound of someone trying to pretend she still had command. He paused, fingers hesitating above the keyboard. "I'm sorry, ma'am. That suite is permanently reserved." She tilted her head. "For whom?" He gave her the kind of look you give a customer you'd prefer not to anger, but definitely want to be done with. "Mr. Halbrook and his guests." She didn't flinch, just pulled out her wallet and slid her ID across the counter. The clerk took it, looked down, looked again. His eyes darted up. Something between discomfort and recognition bloomed across his face. He stepped into the back room without another word. She waited. A minute later, he returned. No keys, no room assignment, just a single envelope. "Management asked me to give you this if you ever returned," he said, setting it gently on the counter like it might bite. She didn't respond, just took the envelope and stepped aside, walking toward the corner of the lobby beneath the old oil painting of the valley. She sat on the same velvet bench where she once waited for Henry to bring her a glass of Prosecco. That bench had seen things, heard things. It knew. She opened the envelope. Inside, a note, handwritten. 7 words, in that same calm, deliberate penmanship. "Some partners are for optics. Some are for war." Underneath, a second line, colder. "You chose optics." She closed her eyes. There was more. A second card slipped out. Thick cardstock, gold embossed. It was a hotel gift voucher, valid for one night, any room except the penthouse. Printed in crisp digital text at the bottom. "To the wife of our new majority shareholder." Still her name. Still mocking. A museum plaque for a woman who used to matter. She folded the note carefully, pressing the edges together with shaking fingers, slid everything back into the envelope as if unreading it could reverse time. It couldn't, because this wasn't revenge written in fire. It was etched in policy, scheduled by calendar invite, signed in blue ink and notarized twice. It wasn't designed to make her scream. It was designed to make her silent. She stood slowly, left the envelope on the bench, and walked out. Not a single person looked up.